Hello there. Welcome to episode 2 of season 4 of the Changing Minds podcast. In this episode, we're going to be looking at what I call brain prompting. Now, the word prompting is probably familiar to you because it's been thrown about quite a lot over the last few months. And the reason it's been thrown about is because prompting is the skill set that you need to have in order for you to communicate more effectively with AI or artificial intelligence. Over the last few months, artificial intelligence has become all the rage. A lot of people are very aware of how powerful it can be, largely due to the popularity of what's known as ChatGPT. And ChatGPT is this incredible chatbot that you can have conversations with. It has the entire database of everything on the internet up to September 2021 on it. And it is able to answer your question, create stories, create ideas, come up with incredible content, improve the content that you already have, adjust the style or tone of that content. I mean, there's a massive amount of incredible things that you can do with ChatGPT. And it's just scratching the surface at the moment. It's going to continuously become more and more powerful. And there's a lot of discussions right now and arguments about what's going to happen with AI. And maybe in the future, we'll talk about using things like ChatGPT to be able to improve the quality of our life. But in this particular episode, what I wanted to do is I wanted to share with you what I call brain prompting. And brain prompting is learning to be able to prompt your brain to be able to work more effectively. Just like prompting is the skill set of communicating with things like ChatGPT to be able to get the best possible responses. Well, what if you're able to do that with your brain? I believe that from neuroscience, from psychology, from fields like neurolinguistic programming or cognitive behavioral therapy, we've learned a vast array of different ideas that can help us to be able to be more effective at the way we talk to ourselves or the prompts that we communicate and we use with ourselves. And so with this in mind, I want to get straight into brain prompting. And I like that term because I think it's much easier for us to understand it as that metaphor, because oftentimes it's almost like your brain operates independently of you. Now, we're not going to get into a philosophical discussion about free will on this particular episode. But what I will say is that when you buy into this idea or buy into this notion that you can indeed prompt your own brain, it gives you some semblance of influence. It gives you some semblance of control. I have a newsletter, a weekly newsletter that I send out called Inner Propaganda. And the main reason why I mentioned inner propaganda, the reason why my TEDx talk in 2016 was largely about inner propaganda, was because we often don't realize that we are influencing ourselves all the time. And to me, brain prompting is one great strategy that we can use to be able to influence ourselves more effectively. And so when we talk about brain prompting, in order for us to be able to draw a successful analogy with regards to the prompting that we're all getting more familiar with over the last few months, we first of all have to ask ourselves, when we prompt AI, what are the kinds of things we might do? So if you're having a conversation, for example, with ChatGPT, the first thing you might do is you might ask a simple question, right? So you might ask them a question about some bit of information that you want to know. So you might say, what is the capital of this country? Or you might say, how many miles is it from the Earth to the moon? You can pretty much ask any question you like, and it will tap into the vast array of knowledge that it has, that it's recorded from the internet up to September 2021, and it will be able to give you an answer. Now, once you do that, it's great. You get some information that you can potentially use. Another thing that we can do to prompt AI effectively is what we call requests, where we ask AI to do something. I want you to create a blog post on this. I want you to create the transcript for a podcast on this. I want you to create a speech about this. And so you can ask it to do certain things. You can request of it to do certain things. You don't even have to say please, although it's always nice to say please. But you can ask it to do any of those things. And when you ask it, it then immediately spits it out. It immediately gives you what you want. The challenge there is that sometimes what you ask it for, based upon how good your request is, it might give you what it thinks you want, not what you actually want. So how good your request is will determine how good the answer is. And that's why prompt engineering is about learning to be able to ask better questions and make better requests and being able to phrase those requests in a much more effective way so that you can get the answer you're looking for. So you've got questions, you've got requests, And another element to it, and this is not necessarily something that you ask it to do per se, but another element to it is specification. And specification is really about you being able to specify to AI exactly what is it that you're looking for. So let's say, for example, you're asking it to write copy for you on your website. Well, one of the things you would do is you'd be very specific. You'd contextualize it. You'd specify it. And you'd say, hey, ChatGPT, I want you to create marketing content for my website with this target audience in mind. So you'll be specific about your target audience. Then you might be specific about some psychographic stuff like what is it that they want to achieve? What is the problem that you're solving for this target audience? You'll start to walk through the kinds of things that you want the ChatGPT to factor in when it's building the copy for your website. And so the more specific you are, oftentimes the more effective the response or the result you will be able to get from ChatGPT. So once again, it's a good example of ChatGPT being very, very effective at doing all that. So we've got three things there to start with. We've got questions we can ask, we've got requests we can make, and we've got specifications. So what I wanted to do is start to address that and bring that over to our brains. So if you were to, for example, use questions with your brain, what are the kinds of questions you could ask that would be a lot more effective at getting the kind of results that you want? When we talk about requests, what are the kind of requests that you can make of your brain that would be helpful or useful? And then also, what is the value of specificity with regards to using your brain more effectively? And so let's start out by talking about questions. And when we talk about questions, we first and foremost have to ask ourselves the question, what is it that we use questions for? And oftentimes, whenever we ask questions, it seems like we're always looking for information. I asked you a question because I want to know what you have to say. I'm looking or searching for that information. But actually, questions do a lot more than just request information. They do lots of different things. But I want to talk about 6 different things that questions do. Because I believe that questions themselves provide you with a wonderful and rare opportunity to be able to train your brain to go in a new direction. And so if you stop and you look at the different things that questions do, the first one, of course, is that questions hunt for answers. They look for information. They're trying to get information from you. So you need to be able to ask questions whereby you're getting more information. You're looking for more answers. And some of these questions are particularly helpful when you ask questions like, how can I solve this problem? Where can I find the answer to this? What do I need to do now? What are my options? What are the options available to me? When you ask questions like this, when you're trying to solve a problem, your brain is now searching for the answer or the solution to the problem, the answer to the question. And so your brain, once you train it to start by asking questions like those, your brain will naturally and automatically go towards finding out the information that you need. Now, you might think to yourself, well, that's obvious, Owen. But how often do we ask ourselves a rhetorical question like, oh, why did I get myself into this situation again? Why am I always doing this to myself? What's wrong with me? Right? What if everything goes wrong? Like, we ask the wrong kinds of questions when we find ourselves in a bit of a pickle. And so it's imperative is that we're able to go, okay, so what's more useful questions? What do I need to do now? What are my options? What resources can I get? What is the next step that I need to take? What is the answer here? Where do I find the answers? Those are the kinds of questions that are useful for us to ask whenever we're looking for answers. And the second type of questions that we can use are questions that create emotions. And questions do create emotions. Questions can direct and dictate how is it that we feel. And if you've ever any question about that, simply remember what happens whenever you're asked questions like, what was the most exciting time that you've ever had in your life? Or who do you love the most in your life? Or what do you hate more than anything? And as I ask any of those questions, as your brain goes in to get the answers, you don't just get the answers in terms of information. You also get an emotion that's attached to that information. So what will invariably happen is that your brain will start to not only find answers, but find emotions in those answers. And so there's really useful questions that we can start to ask that allow us to be able to create the kind of emotions we want. Questions like, what is it that you have to feel grateful for? Or what would happen if you could do it, if you could achieve it? Or when have you succeeded before, right? What are the best qualities about you? What is it that you do better than anyone else? How great would it be if every single thing worked out? What do you have to feel excited about moving forward into the future? Those kind of questions can be very, very helpful to be able to ensure that you're building the kind of emotions and the kind of feelings that you want. And when you start to create those kind of emotions, you recognize that any emotion that you want, you can even ask the question, what emotion do I want to feel? And then based on that, you can start asking questions that result in you feeling that emotion. Very, very powerful. A lot of times people don't always understand that. The third thing that you can do, which is particularly helpful or useful, is create curiosity for yourself. Creating curiosity is a way to motivate you to be able to search for more information, search for more of the kinds of things that will help you to achieve your goal. Curiosity is known as being one of the most important qualities that you need to have in terms of the business world, but also it's important in terms of life because it's what drives the growth mindset. The growth mindset, of course, being your belief that you can improve, you can get better, you can develop your skills if you apply yourself. Well, curiosity drives that because in order for you to be able to get better at something, you need to be pursuing it. You need to be learning about it. You need to be really actively motivated to get better. And that implies curiosity. So anytime you ask a question, how can I do this better? How can I do this more? What else can I do? Those kinds of questions can dramatically increase how curious you are and therefore move you in the direction that you're looking for. So the fourth thing that the questions effectively do is help you to challenge your beliefs. And so if you ever find yourself believing in something that limits you, which is often the case, then you can immediately start to ask yourself the following questions. What if I'm wrong? How do I know that's true? Is that always true in every situation? What else could be true? Can I rethink this? Am I sure of this? Those kinds of questions are great questions that provide you with a way of creating doubt, starting to doubt what it is that you once believed. And when you start to doubt these limiting beliefs, it opens your mind up to the point that you can start to choose more empowering beliefs, choose beliefs that serve you, that allow you to be able to perform better, that allow you to be able to do what it is that you want to do. It's a very, very effective way of being able to turn things around more powerfully. So these four different functions are really helpful. But let me give you another two. The next one is that questions also help you to clarify information. So if, for example, you're confused about something, if you're not 100% sure about something, if you're trying to get to the bottom of something, they allow you to be able to clarify. And questions like, what does this mean? Or what do you mean? Or how does this work? Or what is going on here? Those are the kinds of questions which allow you to drill in and try to dissect and analyze and understand what's happening. When you ask the question, what does this mean? Once again, you're hunting for the meaning of it. It allows you to clarify and understand what's happening. And some of the great questions in the field of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, or CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, provide you with a great array of questions that allow you to both challenge and change beliefs, as well as being able to get clarity in terms of from an informational perspective. And then the sixth function of questions is questions that allow you to dictate focus. These are questions that allow you to be able to go, what do I need to focus on? What's most important here? What is my priority here? What do I need to pay attention to now? What do I need to learn here? Why is this the most important thing? By you training yourself to ask that question, you'll start to focus more on the kinds of things that you need to be focused on. And so when you start to focus on the kinds of things that need to be focused on, it means you're going to be able to do what it is that you need to do when you need to do it. Focus is one of the most important, most critical qualities that we need to develop and improve on, especially in the world of distraction that we live in today. So being able to ask the questions that dictate your focus can be enormously valuable, enormously helpful. And so these 6 questions provide you with a wonderful toolkit to be much more effective at prompting your brain. By the way, you can also ask a really fun question, which is, why is this funny? Or how could this be funny? Or how can I make this funny? What a lot of comedians immediately have as a default question they're asking is, where's the funny in this? The great storytellers will experience certain things and their brain will automatically ask the question, how is this a great story? Or what are the best parts of this as a story that I could use? Or how can I share this as a story in a really effective way? Like, this is what the best storytellers do. This is what the best comedians do. Their brain automatically asks that question, and therefore they filter in and look for it. This is what I call a laughter filter, is what I call this strategy that a lot of comedians use. And great storytellers, you could call it the story filter. They're always filtering and looking for, how is this information useful? How does this help me to be able to be funnier or tell a better story as well? So questions are a really powerful way of prompting your brain. What else? I know what you're thinking. You're thinking to yourself, wow, that's cool, Owen. Thanks so much for that information. That's so valuable. I'm like, yeah, you're welcome. And you're like, oh, brilliant. I wonder, is there anything else? I mean, you did mention request and specificity, didn't you? And I'm like, yes, I did. Would you like to know more? And you're like, yes, I absolutely would like to know more. And I'm like, okay, if you want to know more, I'm going to tell you more. So let's get into requests. You ask requests like, if you use ChatGPT, I know you ask requests all the time. And when I say ask requests, you're telling him, I want you to do this. I want you to do that. And there's one interesting thing. A lot of times when you give instructions to ChatGPT, I've noticed myself doing it, I would have started off and said, please. And some people say you need to stop treating this ChatGPT like it's a real human being. It's not. There's all sorts of negative issues with treating it as if it's a person. Other people I've heard say you should treat it as it's a person, because when you do, you'll start to find that it'll influence you, you'll influence it. And I suppose the argument there might be, well, if I don't say please to it all the time, then maybe I'll stop. When I communicate to other people, maybe I'll stop saying please to them as well, because it'll become habitual, or it'll change my habit. And so I'm not going to get into a debate right now about whether we should treat ChatGPT as if it's a person or not. I think there's all sorts of considerations we have to have. But what I will say is I like to say please, just because, less so about it, I like just to keep it and to practice it. That being said, I won't always say it, especially if I've already asked a request before. But when you're talking about a request, it doesn't really matter if you use please or not. But what does matter is how you frame the request. In other words, when you're trying to make a request or ask ChatGPT to do something, the better that you request it, the more effective it will be for you. And so there's just two different ideas just for now that I wanted to tease with you, which are ways to be able to help you to be able to make better requests of your brain. And that is, when you're communicating with your brain, there's two strategies, let's say, we can learn from ChatGPT and the way in which we prompt it to be able to prompt our brain in such a way that we get better responses and better results from it. And so the first is the I want you to X. Now, I want you to X is a prompt we might say, I want you to create copy for this. I want you to create copy for that. But we often will use this ourselves. Whenever, for example, you're about to go asleep at night, and before you go to sleep, you say, I want to wake up at 7 o'clock. And without an alarm clock, I know there's many of you out there that without an alarm clock, you just tell yourself this, you will wake up at almost 7 o'clock on the dot. You're always amazed. That's the power of your brain. And the key there is that that's an example of a request that you're making of your brain. Now, Richard Bandler, Dr. Richard Bandler, co-creator of NLP and creative genius, I've been fortunate enough to obviously spend a lot of time with him and over the years, and worked on 7 books together, co-written 6 of them. And with all of the work that we've done together, what I've found is that one of the best and coolest things that he brought to my attention was that whenever we give ourselves a suggestion like, I'm going to wake up at 7 a.m. the following morning, we can also add to that. So I'm going to wake up at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, and I'm going to feel motivated and ready to go. Or and I'm going to be really sharp and really focused that day. In other words, he would stack the suggestions on top. And in many ways, that's what we're looking for, this auto-suggestion that sometimes is talked about in terms of self-hypnosis. Well, we can make auto-suggestions. We can suggest to ourselves certain things. And when we phrase it in the sense of, brain, I want you to make me feel good at this particular time. Brain, I want you to change my attitude right now. So I'm looking forward to this. Simply by telling the brain to do this, it's remarkable that it can actually start to change the way we feel. We simply give it the instructions, very definite instructions of what we want to do. And the clarity of what we want to do can often help the brain to go, okay, I know what that looks like. I'll do it. And so what you might want to try is as you're trying to improve in some way, if you want to get yourself into a certain state of mind or frame of mind, if you want to be able to perform in a certain way, if you want to be able to have a certain attitude, give yourself that prompt, give yourself that request. Tell yourself, what is it that you want your brain to do? And you might be surprised with how well it does it. Now, the other thing, besides just the instruction, I want you to do X, you could also use another thing, which is one of the prompts that is quite cool is you might say, I want you to act as a advertising genius, or I want you to act as this copywriter. I want you to act as Albert Einstein, and I want you to have a conversation with me right now. I want you to imagine that you're this person. I want you to imagine you're that person. Well, when you do that, the AI is great at being able to take all of the information it has about that person and then have a nice conversation with you. What if you're able to do that to your brain? What if you're able to tell your brain, I want you to act as you would if you were super confident. I want you to act like you're the greatest public speaker in the world. I want you to act like you're the most calm, cool, and collected person possible as you go into this interview. I want you to act as if you're this person. I want you to imagine being that person. Simply making that request of yourself can help you to step into that person's shoes. And while you might not have the reservoir or the database of information about that person that ChatGPT might have access to, your brain still has a massive amount of information that you're not aware of that allows it to be able to do a really decent job that way. And so I definitely recommend saying or using a prompt to yourself, such as, I want you to act as if you're this type of person. I want you to act as if you're that type of person. So I think that's a really, really cool request. And the final thing that I wanted to get to was specificity. And when I say specificity, I'm talking about how specific you are when you talk to yourself. You might say, well, what do you mean by this? Well, what I mean by this is so often we want our brains to give us all of these incredible things. We want our minds to be able to come up with exactly what we need. And yet we're not clear enough about what is it that we actually do need, right? So when you prompt AI, you might go, I want you to create copy for my website and your target audience is X. And you want to be, and what they want is they want Y, and their problem that they want to overcome is Z, right? So you've got, this is the target audience. You're getting specific about it. They're between this age. You're giving them demographic information, psychographic information about their likes, desires, values, all that sort of stuff. And therefore, the more specific you are, the better result that you'll get, the better response you'll get from ChatGPT. What if we were to do that for our brain? What if you were to start to prompt yourself and give yourself more specific information? So you're giving yourself, for example, more specific information that allows you to be more effective and strategically communicating. So let's say, for example, you're about to walk into a sales meeting. You spend a bit of time beforehand and you train yourself to go, okay, so this is the target audience we're talking to. This is what they want. This is what they don't want. This is the problem that they want to solve. This is what's important for them. This is how old they are. This is where they're from, right? This is their background. You're giving yourself all of the time to be able to be as specific as you can about exactly what you want the brain to be able to come up with. So before you go into a meeting, you're not just responding in the moment. You're spending time going specific so you can come up with powerful strategy to be able to get the message across in the way you want it to. So in other words, when you're in a situation that you need to be able to be better at influencing or communicating or getting your message across, spend some time being strategic and be specific over exactly who you're talking to, what you want them to do, what you don't want them to do, what they want, what they need, what they value, what problem they want to solve. Try to get as detailed and as granular as you can about exactly what you want them to feel. And the more specific you are, the more capable you are of being able to have those kind of conversations and to be able to communicate in that way so that you can get the kind of result that you want. It's amazing. But the more specific you are with your brain, the more likely you are to be able to get the kind of results that you want moving forward. So there you have it. Those are 3 different strategies that we can use. And inside of them, there's even more, but 3 different strategies that you can use to master the art of brain prompting. So in the future, when you're speaking to yourself, you can start to prompt your brain to do a lot better. You can start to ask it better questions, ask it questions that don't just request information, but request the right kind of information that empowers you, that creates the kind of emotions that you want to feel when you need to feel it, that builds curiosity for you. So it drives you to take more actions and it motivates you to learn more about what you need to know in that situation, that allows you to be able to clarify information so you truly understand what's going on, to challenge the beliefs, the limiting beliefs that hold you back. And that also allows you to dictate and determine where your focus goes. So you can start to focus on what matters and you're able to focus on what's most important. So you instruct your brain by telling it, I want you to do X, and being very clear about exactly what you wanted to do, giving yourself a solid, strong, certain suggestion. By asking it to act as if it's a particular person or a particular expert or a particular genius or a particular role model. Or even being more specific with your brain by getting really clear and granular of exactly what you're looking for. The more you do these kind of things, the more results you're going to get from your brain, the better your brain is going to respond for you, and the happier your life is going to be. So this has been Brain Prompting. I hope you found it useful. I hope you found it helpful. As we go through the next few weeks, we're going to talk to some guests. We're going to be getting back into belief leadership, which this is just one small tool, I suppose, that can help you to interact better with your brain and hopefully start to allow you to think more effectively so you can start to cultivate more effective beliefs. But for now, please go out there. Would love to get your responses. Please sign up for my Inner Propaganda newsletter. You can find it at owenfitzpatrick.com on the homepage. Weekly, you'll hear from me, and I'll be sharing with you some really great strategies or systems or suggestions that you can use to improve your life. But for now, take care, be well. May the force be with you, and may you continue to believe.